Tonight I have Melissa Sturgis. Hi Alice, I have Melissa Sturgis with me, who is the CEO and founder of a company called Montana Optimum Wellness that bring premium CBD products to the market. Now, Melissa actually has a 25-year career in the metals and mining industry, which I think is fascinating, Melissa. Mainly working on the African continent, putting together mining projects and raising money in the UK. She's director of a number of companies on the London Stock Exchange, and in 2017 became interested in the benefits and potential of cannabis as a medicine. Now, Melissa, welcome. I'd love you to expand a little bit more about your journey and your background and how you've ended up setting up this company and the research behind it, because what's really appealed to me is there is so much research that goes into your product. Yeah. And I've certainly tried a few. So just, if you can just tell us a little bit more about your background and how you've ended up where you are today.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Lee. And hi, everyone. And thank you for welcoming me into your group again, Lee. It's really, really, really cool. Yeah, it has been a strange journey because my background, I'm a scientist by trade and actually a statistician, and ended up working in the mining industry, mainly in Africa. And one of the very few female entrepreneurs in the mining sector came up to London, raised a lot of capital up here. So basically spent 25 years running around Africa, finding gold projects that were owned by farmers or small gold projects, putting together teams of geologists and mining engineers, and then raising money in London and listing these companies on one of the London stock exchanges. So I did that for a very long time. And then for those of you who follow sort of the macro sectors, the mining industry hit a real dip a couple of years ago. And I started to look around, and I have to say the medical cannabis thing was very opportunistic for me in the beginning. It was sort of a business opportunity. And then the more I started to read about it, I thought, whoa, this is really, really, really interesting. So I was doing a little bit of research at home myself. I read an article in the FT and found a guy in Israel who was running a series of medical cannabis conferences around the world. He'd run one in London, one in Israel, one in Sydney, and a couple in the US. I contacted him, and long story short, as we know, there's a lot of luck in life. He happened to grow up about 5 miles from me in Perth, Western Australia. So we connected immediately. And he said, yeah, I know. Can you believe it? And he'd made Alia, which is, if you're not Jewish, is going to the homeland, making the big sort of journey to the homeland. So he was an Aussie who'd made Alia and gone back to Israel. So he'd set up a pharmacy and got involved in medical cannabis. And he said, Melissa, if you're interested in the space, you need to come to Israel, because this is the heart and soul of international cannabis research. So that was 2017. I became absolutely fascinated and mesmerized, raised some money amongst family and friends, and listed a small company, which is still listed, called Ananda Developments. And we started to make small investments in the medical cannabis space. Then I was actually at a conference in Israel, and it would have been by then probably early 2018. And I was going through menopause myself, and it was pretty difficult. If you or any of your ladies know the experience, especially when you're in meetings. I gave up wearing blazers. I had my jacket was on, off, cardigans on, off, and it was a lot of that, and a lot of tying your hair up and pretty chaotic. And so I said to this guy, open the window, close the window, jumper on, jumper off, exactly. And so I'd said to this guy in Israel, look, okay, if you think this stuff's so amazing, this is menopause. I don't like it. I'm a mining person. This is like so not what I'm used to. Can you do something? And he gave me some CBD oil, some cannabis oil, which was fully legal as we know it here in the UK. So very little THC. So it wasn't psychoactive. And it really helped my symptoms. Straight away, my sleep was far improved. And I found that once my sleep improved, pretty much lots of other things started to come off the back of that. You don't put on weight if you sleep well. Your mood is better if you sleep well. So I thought, whoa, this is pretty interesting. So then I decided, I actually came back to London, started to look for a CBD oil I could use in the UK, and really couldn't find anything that I resonated with. And really my issues were, what is the science? The labeling was confusing. I didn't know really what to do with it. I didn't know if I could trust it. And I thought, well, if this is me being an investor in medical cannabis, then this must be a really big problem for lots of other people. And I also didn't want to take an oil that was in a sort of a hippie bottle with a cannabis leaf on it. I thought, it's not all over yet. It's not all over. I'm going to cling on to having something a bit cool. So I want to make, I want some packaging that's going to make me not feel like, it's the end. That might feel like, I've still got something left.
Designed yourself to start holidays, yeah,
exactly. So I then, during that period of working in Israel, I got to know a lady scientist called Inbar Pomeranchik. I talk about her behind her back, but I would say this to her face. She's crazy. She's a mother of 4. She's a PhD in plant bioscience, and she's a specialist in cannabis. So I said to her, okay, here's this crazy idea. How about it? And she said, yep, let's do it. So we launched our first oil at the end of last year in November, which was Montana #1, which is everyday wellness. And it is a combination of CBD and a blend of terpenes, which are part of the whole cannabis plant. And the terpenes, as we are learning more and more, do just as much as the CBD in helping treat the various indications or symptoms or issues that we may have. Yeah, the terpenes are really important. And the terpenes are actually, they give any plant, and the cannabis plant, its aroma, so its smell and its sort of fragrance. And when you squeeze plants and take out the oil, that is the terpene that you're squeezing out to make an essential oil. So essentially so essentially, rather than looking at a sort of just a plant, squeezing a plant, we actually drill right down into the molecules of these terpenes. So the molecules within the essential oils to work out exactly what's doing what, combine that with the CBD to create these formulations. And that's why Montana #1 has been so successful, because we chose terpenes very specifically to help with sleep, anxiety, and as you know, those sort of wellness issues.
So can you explain, Melissa, just how does it operate within the system? What is actually happening when you take it? What's it in?
Okay.
So effective.
Yeah. The best way for me to describe it is that everybody has a system in their body, like the muscular system, the circulatory system, the nervous system. There's a system called the endocannabinoid system. And it's sort of, the best way to describe it is like a motherboard on a computer. So it's a system that sits over all the other systems in the body. And really, we're only starting to understand this recently. And when I say recently, the last 30 years or so. So even if you go to medical school now, you don't spend a lot of time learning about the endocannabinoid system, but now we're seeing more and more about it in the research. And especially when we look at medical cannabis, there's a big focus on the endocannabinoid system. So this sort of motherboard system is about the fine-tuning balance of all the body's other systems. And what happens is, when you're stressed, the endocannabinoid system fires up, your body produces molecules which attach to basically the bit of stress, if you like, to dampen down that stress response, and you feel less stressed. When you get totally stressed out or over the top stressed or whatever, your body can't produce enough natural molecules to dampen down your anxiety or whatever it is you're suffering from, inflammation, for example, pain, anxiety. So what we do with the CBD oils is we're basically supplementing the body's own natural system. So it's think about it as a motherboard or an engine management system on a car. And I sort of see it in old-fashioned terms that you're sort of putting oil in. So it's sort of just helping everything work better. It's sort of balancing everything out and just making all the cogs move in a more in an easier fashion. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And so before you released your classic, your #1, so how much research will go into it and sort of testing to create the science behind it to bring it to market?
Yeah. So the formulation process is is really interesting. We work with ethnobotanists in Israel. So these are people whose specialization is understanding the terpene profiles of cannabis plants, but taking out the THC, which is the psychoactive part, which is A, illegal, and B, is what gets you high. So they understand all of these minute terpenes within these various cannabis plants, different strains of cannabis. Then they replicate them with other plant-based terpenes. So they recreate the profile of a cannabis strain that we would find useful, say, for everyday wellness, and make it out of non-cannabis plants. So it's completely natural and completely safe. Then what we did, we worked with them and said, okay, that's fine. You've given us a strain of cannabis that is sort of for everyday wellness, and you've created this terpene profile that replicates that. We actually think that for everyday wellness, what are the big life issues? They're low mood, there's sleep, anxiety, and pain. Really, inflammation, pain. They're the sort of the big kind of lifestyle issues. So can we so we said to them, can we dial up the terpenes that really help with those particular issues? And Inbar spends time with the ethnobotanists in the lab. They work out what formulations and why. So they have all the research on the various terpenes and exactly what they do. They play around with them, they measure them, they see how, see what the effects are. They then do some work on them in the lab, and then they normally send me and my team in London samples in different strengths, and then we start to test. Okay, the interesting thing about terpenes is you need a tiny, tiny, tiny amount. So for example, in one of our formulations, it's only going to be 0.25% of the terpene profile in the whole bottle. So a tiny amount, but they have a magnificent effect. So I'll try different strengths. I try them for taste. I try them, and I try them for effect. And then I decide, usually I do it for myself, and then Inbar will do it, trial and error. What do we think works best? And then we settle on that formulation. That's how we got to number one. And that's how we've got to All About Me, which is the menopause formulation, which we're just about to release.
Yes, we'll talk about the menopause one in a minute. So is there a particular, a most common issue that people will use a CBD for? Is it really anxiety, the low mood, pain?
Yeah.
And how impactful is it on something like pain?
Pain, we're getting some really amazing results. We have a couple of customers who sort of, I don't think they drink it, but they order a lot of it and say it's really, really helpful for pain. We're getting great results with fibromyalgic pain, for example. Yeah, and arthritic pain. That's a rheumatoid arthritic pain, which is, there's a lot of inflammation involved in that. So definitely pain. Sleep, massive. Everyone who uses it for sleep say, I get to sleep faster, I stay asleep longer, I have better quality sleep, and if I wake up, I go back to sleep more easily. So sleep, pain, and anxiety. We've got one guy who's actually in the building trade, and he says he goes home at lunchtime to have a couple of drops, before he goes. He'll sort of know if he's got to go to a building site and he's got a really difficult meeting, he'll go home and take 3 drops before he goes to his next meeting. He's that sort of tuned into the benefits that it's giving him.
Wow. So he's really sort of got this, he's almost connected more to his body now in a way.
Yeah. So he's much more aware. Yeah.
It's a really interesting thing nowadays that I think people can sometimes be quite disconnected to how they feel, because people live in their head quite a lot, and they sort of, but the mind-body connection is such a huge one in the way we feel and what we experience in our body. Feelings are signals, aren't they? To tell us something. And the sort of state of chronic stress that many people have adapted to and think it's normal, whereas in fact it's not normal. The ability to be able to rest and restore and rebalance, that's not particularly celebrated in our culture, is it? We're celebrated by, being busy all the time.
No, exactly.
There's an issue with that. One of the questions that has come in is the difference between different oils, because someone has written in actually and said they went to Boots and there's all sorts of different price ranges and CBD products on the market, from being in skincare to gummy bears to all sorts of different ways of digesting it and taking it in. But how do you know what a good product is? How do you know what percentage you should be looking at? And if you buy, say, £7 of Boots, what can you expect that to be? And if you put it in a skincare product, is that actually going to work, or is that more of a marketing thing? Because I think it's big news, CBD, but I think there seems to be quite a bit of smoke and marketing sort of stuff around it, which is why I want to talk to you, because I know there's a huge amount of science that goes into your products and research to make them what they are. So can you sort of share a little bit about how do you know what a good product is and where to look, where to put your money?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that's a really good question, and it's sort of the big unknowns. The background to that question, Lee, is in the UK, the numbers of people using CBD is on the rise. The number of people standing back saying, I'm really interested, but I'm not quite sure whether I should trust, where to go, what to look for. That number is really huge. And interestingly, much larger in the UK than in many other countries. So I think by nature, we probably a good, healthy cynicism about, we don't tend to necessarily get on every bandwagon. So people tend to be at the moment saying, okay, I'm interested and I really would like to know more, but I'm not just going to go and buy any old thing. So it's a really good question. The big thing to look for is the certificates that come with every product. So when any CBD supplier either buys from a wholesaler and repackages, which there is a lot of, a lot of the product you see is, I don't know if people are familiar with a term called white label, which is sort of buying in bulk and putting your own label on the front of it. There's a lot of that. Look on websites. So always check websites for certificates, because if it's a reputable company, the website will carry the certificate from a lab, a third-party lab, so not the company's own lab, a third-party lab showing the contents of the oil, how much CBD exactly is in it, because many labels will say that it's got 1,000 milligrams, but it doesn't have 1,000 milligrams, because the sector is so unregulated at the moment that there are a lot of, as you pointed out, there are a lot of sort of not a lot of shysters, but there's a lot of product out there that isn't necessarily the quality that it purports to be. And also the third-party tests will tell you if there are any traces of any heavy metals or any pesticides or anything like that have got left over in the extraction process. So a really good place. That's a good place to start.
Okay, so good place. Tell me a bit more about the metals. So that's something that's really significant to look out for. The heavy metals being part of that process, and the residue that's left in there. Could that be potentially harmful to your system?
Yes, absolutely. So you want to make sure that there basically everything on the certificate reads 0 in terms of heavy metals, pesticides, residuals, anything like that. So reputable oils will provide you with a certificate, so you'll know where the CBD comes from, whether it's come from Europe, whether it's come from the US, whether it's come from Colombia, Czechoslovakia, wherever, and it will tell you exactly what is in it. And so that's the key place to start. Then the other sort of the big thing about CBD oils is whether you're buying full spectrum, broad spectrum, or isolate. So they're really distillations of the same thing.
Okay. So how does that? How do you know? Can you expand a little bit more on when you say broad spectrum?
Yeah. Okay. So a full spectrum oil is basically a cannabis plant squeezed and put into a bottle, for want of a better sort of description. So you're getting a little bit of everything. That can be really good, and a lot of people who know about CBD have heard about this thing called the entourage effect, which means that there's lots of different things in a full spectrum oil. They all work together, and the effect of them working together is greater than if they were taken individually. The sum of the parts, exactly. So that can be good, but there is very little consistency between batches of CBD oil. So you might try one full spectrum oil and it works for you and you like it. But there is nothing to say that when you buy that again, it's going to be even remotely the same.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, it's and actually today I thought of you today because, you know, this is also happening in medical cannabis. I was talking to a scientist today, and he was saying that some of the medical cannabis that has been prescribed in the UK has not been consistent from batch to batch, because you're growing a plant in a field and you're squeezing it and you're putting it in a bottle. So if the sunlight, the rain, the temperature, the wind is different from crop to crop, then the plant is going to be different from crop to crop. So that's full spectrum. Then you've got broad spectrum, which is they take out the THC, the psychoactive bit. And I should say, sorry, on full spectrum, they will, if you're buying it in the UK, it's only going to have legally 0.2% THC, a maximum of 0.2%. Broad spectrum, they take out all the THC and sort of refine it a little bit. So you get a bit of an entourage effect, but not all, but you still have this risk that from batch to batch, it's not going to be the same. You can move to an isolate, which is pure CBD on its own, but then you miss out on the entourage effect completely. Some indications, however, find that just pure CBD is enough because it is anti-inflammatory on its own. Just to sort of finish that, what we've done at Montana is we've taken isolate and then we've put back the terpenes. So we've sort of we've re-engineered a broad spectrum product, but scientifically. So you will know, or one of our customers will know, that if our oil works for them, it's going to always work for them because it's going to be the same every single time they buy it.
Okay.
So
that's quite
the story,
isn't it? That alone. Absolutely.
Yeah, it is, because we know exactly how much of every terpene is in our product, and not many people can say that, because from one batch to the next, it could be different.
And so, if you take it in a terpene, if you take it like in a pipette, like yours, is that the best way, the most effective way to get it to work, basically? So rather than a gummy bear or a cream or something like that?
Yes. If you stick it under your tongue and hold for 2 minutes before you swallow or do anything else, it's going to go straight into the bloodstream, and it will also avoid the liver.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Whereas if you take a gummy bear, it's going to go with all your food and everything else, and it's also going to be processed through the liver. So your, what we call the bioavailability, so sort of the potential benefit of a gummy bear is much, much smaller than the potential benefit of an oil under the tongue, and it will take longer to give you some sort of an effect. Because, for example, Montana #1, if I'm feeling really freaked out, I can stick a couple of drops under my tongue, and within 2 minutes I go, right, okay, that's fine. I can feel myself calming down. So it's all about bioavailability. The only way to get more than an oil under your tongue is inhale. So would be to be vaping. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
And so someone's just actually asking here, Melissa, how much CBD in 10 mil of your oil?
So our formulations are 10%. So we have 1,500 milligrams of CBD in 15 mils of oil. So in 10 mils, we'd have 10 milligrams.
And then where does it come? Where does yours come from?
Comes from America. Yeah. So we have GMP sourced, so good manufacturing practice sourced CBD isolate from America that comes through. And if anyone goes onto our website, all our lab reports are in the footer of every single page of our website. And then, so we bring the CBD in, and then we bring the formulations that are created in Israel. They come in, and then we formulate here in the UK.
Right. Okay. Let me think. I was just going to ask you, so it's a cream, Melissa, or if it's in a serum CBD, is that going to impact?
Well, it'll probably be good for pain, because so the endocannabinoid system, there are many receptors in the endocannabinoid system. There are a main bunch in the brain and in the central nervous system, so in the sort of core of your body, but there are also a lot of receptors on the skin. So yes, a CBD cream can work as a topical for inflammation. And in fact, our oil, a stockbroker girlfriend of mine has really bad eczema. And so she was taking it as a drop. And I said, well, look, you know, you can be my guinea pig. And she put it on, actually just rubbed it onto her hands, and it reduced her eczema. So yes, it can be used as a topical. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Interesting. Really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about, before we go into questions, the menopause formula.
Yep.
Expand on how that's different from your classic and what people can expect from it.
Okay, so it's more focused on mood uplifting, mood uplifting, anti-anxiety, because I would sort of have this whoa all the time. It sort of go between being really anxious and then really, really low. So mood, anxiety, not focused quite as much on the really sort of the calming, sedative aspect of number one. So what I'm actually doing at the moment is, I think that the best thing for me to be doing for my menopause is I take the menopause formulation during the day, and then I still take number one at night, because that gives me the best result for sleep. Okay. So yeah, we're working on more of the uplifting mood, joint pain, which has been a big one for me. You know, I've just gone, I feel like I've got sand in my knees and my hips. Right. You know, everything just sort of grinds. So pain, the inflammation, the mood, and we've got a terpene. We've included a terpene in this one, which is, and I sort of, maybe it's contentious, but I hope not, because it's only a tiny, tiny, tiny amount, but it's a tiny appetite suppressant, as well as being a mood enhancer and anti-anxiety. This particular terpene does have has some research around it about an appetite suppressant, and I know for a lot of ladies, you know, weight becomes an issue in menopause, and I think my view is that comes from, you know, poor sleep. You don't feel like moving when you're exhausted. When your joints ache, you don't feel like moving. You know, it's as much as you can do to get through the day. Sometimes, you know, if you're really battling, it's as much as you can do to get through the day. So we've really focused on more of those uplifting points, whereas number one has a little bit more of the sort of calming sleep type aspect to it. So that's sort of, it's quite subtle, but you know, but the differences are really important.
So what's in it to sort of work on boosting the mood? What's the formula? How does the formula differ in that way?
I'll go to my cheat sheet. So the terpenes that are good for mood in particular are limonene. Now, limonene is a fascinating terpene, because did you know that limonene is in cleaning products? And if you look on the back of your Chanel perfume bottle, I bet you it will tell you it's got limonene in it, because it's mood enhancing.
Oh, interesting.
So perfume, they put it in a so it's not just because it smells nice when you put your Chanel No. 5 on. It's because it's got limonene in it. It actually has a chemical reaction in your brain that makes you feel better. So these terpenes, I tell you, I have learned, you know, since I've got involved in this, I've learned so much. So what was your question? Which terpene does which?
So what is it that's in there that's going to boost the mood?
Okay. So mood boosting, limonene, which we just talked about. Alpha pinene is another terpene which we include. Then I've got linalool is calming, so that definitely helps your mood because it has a calming effect.
Yes, especially in menopause. You're saying so many of the people I've spoken to in the group that what you were saying before about the levels of anxiety, because of the drop in estrogen. Yes, anxiety becomes a bit of an issue, and it's a sort of roller coaster as the hormones, you know, you go with them. So I think that having something that can help stabilize you. And also, I do think that when you have a sort of stopgap in your day and you do something like, you know, you use your dropper, it's that moment of checking in with yourself as well. And you might even implement some breathing. You might just take a bit of time to sort of reground yourself. So you're really using all the different things you can to help your mind and body work, you know, to keep in tune, you know. So it's almost like that's a way of sort of punctuating your day. I'm going to use this dropper. I'm going to take a few deep breaths. I'm going to reground.
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
So okay. So you've got the different terpenes that are going to help boost the mood.
Yep.
Someone's just saying here, which terpene is that? Is that, I'm not sure. Let's just see what that question was referring to, actually.
Is that person wanting to know which terpene is mood enhancing? Oh, was it the suppressant?
So okay,
Appetite.
yes, appetite.
Appetite. Yeah, there you go. It's called humulene.
Humulene, Louise. Does that help? I don't know if that answers your question. But yeah, so that's.
And there are some really interesting anti-inflammatory. One of the interesting things about these terpenes is quite often most of them do some of the same sorts of things, but in sort of different amounts. So there are some that are really focused on anti-inflammation, but will also help with some other things as well. So for example, beta-carotene, which is a very well-known terpene in the cannabis plant, that is really focused on inflammation. So it's a really big anti-inflammatory terpene.
Okay, it's really interesting, actually, because there's a question I'm going to. Yes, thanks. That's good, Louise. I'm glad we were able to help with that. Any more questions, just pop them in the comments there. Because we had another question come in, actually, that I'm just going to move on to now, Melissa. And this is about arthritis. So, of course, we're talking about inflammation there.
Yeah.
So it was about someone's father who has arthritis.
Yeah.
How often and how much CBD you take? He is taking it orally. We've spoken about identifying the best CBD oils. He's currently using 2000 Moray oil. I don't know what that is. He's got arthritis in his hands and in his shoulder. So maybe we can talk a little bit about dosage and how you work up to what level should you take. And, you know, do you build up a tolerance to it? How often should you take it, depending on what your condition is that you're dealing with, the challenges you're dealing with? Can we expand a little bit on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we recommend to start. So let's use the question as a sort of a live worked example. So for that person who's suffering from arthritis, I would say to start on Montana number 1. And I would suggest that you start with 3 drops under the tongue three times a day. And then you and scale up. And if you don't get a result, so some people you find you get a result straight away. Some people take a couple of days. Some people sort of take up to a week for their body to start to really respond well to CBD oils. So I'd start with 3 drops a day. 3 drops 3 times a day. If it wasn't working, you weren't getting a good reaction after a week, increase those drops by, say, 1 drop each time 3 times a day. So 4, 4, and 4, and you can go up to easily sort of 14 or so drops a day. Now, if you look at, so in terms of dosage, the Food Standard Agency has come out and said that people shouldn't take more than 70 milligrams of CBD per day. So that's fine. That is very much at the low end, and I would comfortably take that myself. I don't need to take that much to manage my menopause symptoms and just keep myself in balance. But I wouldn't have any qualms myself about taking up to 70 milligrams a day. If you look at medicinal cannabis, people are taking 3,000 milligrams a day. So one of the great things about CBD and medical cannabis is it's not going to kill you. So the risks aren't huge. The potential benefits are absolutely magnificent, really, in relative to the risks. So for that person with arthritis, a Montana number 1 is really good. We've got a lot of beta-carotene in Montana number 1. That is anti-inflammatory, and beta-carotene actually behaves like CBD as well. So it's almost like a double whammy of CBD. I don't really want to comment. I mean, I'm happy to interact with the question directly on a particular product, but what I would encourage is have a look at the research on that product and the Ah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, I've got someone saying I'm having trouble hearing me. Oh, you know what? It's my other speaker in the background. Sorry about that. It's like an Alexa saying I can't hear you. So have a look at the certificates on the product to make sure that there is as much CBD in the actual bottle as it is saying on the label. So the label might say, okay, it's something 2000, I think you said. It might be saying there's 2000 milligrams of CBD in the bottle. Check the certificate to make sure that is actually the case. And
Yeah.
then look to see if there are other terpenes there so that you get the sort of double whammy benefit of having the beta carotene as well, which, as I say, is a really good anti-inflammatory. Start with 3 drops 3 times a day and increase.
Okay.
If you don't get a response. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the big thing is to check the check the research behind that particular brand you're buying is the big thing.
Yes. Yep.
So I hope that's helpful for that reader. I have some other ones as well. Someone was asking, can I overdose? So you've answered that. You can't overdose on it, can you?
Not really. You'd have to take, you'd really have to take a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, you really would. I must say, I find if I take 3 drops at night when I get into bed, sometimes 4.
Yeah.
If I take any more than 4 drops just before I go to sleep, I actually find that I don't have a great night's sleep. And this is because of this balancing effect. So CBD, the Montana #1 will lift you from a low, but if you take too much, it will sort of take you past that point. So it really is fine. This is really fine tuning. And it goes back to your point, which is checking in on yourself and taking care of your own wellness. So it's not, oh, I'll just take this or I'll just take that. It's, what, take this and monitor. Actually be awake to how you're reacting and responding to the CBD. Yeah. So that fine tuning is really important. And one of the things I really like about the CBD wellness space is I do think it helps me certainly, but it helps everyone who uses it to take care of their own wellness more than relying on sort of, there's a one size fits all answer to a problem.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think it's the same with sort of medical stuff. People will maybe take an antidepressant and think that will answer everything. But, I know from the sort of people I've treated, it can help, but you have to look at the other aspects of your life. Do you know what I mean? It's taking responsibility for for ourselves and our well-being as much as we possibly can. So it's sort of that overview, really. And these things like CBD can be great at helping, but we also integrate other things too, I think, in order to help ourselves in maximum way possible. I have some other questions here from the group, which I'm just going to quickly look at, Melissa. So I know we've been on 40 minutes already. Time goes quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, God, not at all. It's fantastic to have you here. Let me just quickly look at these other questions that were written before we actually went on when I put in a question earlier. So let's see. Okay, how does it suit general lethargy and autoimmune conditions?
Yeah, the same way. It is about the balancing. So in autoimmune responses and lethargy, your endocannabinoid system is overwhelmed and it's you're exhausted. So CBD, try a CBD oil and start low and go slow. Start low and increase the dosage. Mostly people find that if it doesn't work, it's because they're not using a good quality product. I mean, that's, it is one of those things that you sort of, it is all about the quality. And unfortunately, you're either not taking enough or you're using a poor quality product if you're not getting a response. Yeah.
I'll say something else as well, actually. I tried a couple of other brands, and what's interesting is the taste of some really, really bitter.
Yeah.
Like difficult to consume.
Yes.
But somehow you've managed to get yours with a very smooth, slightly lemon sort of tinge to it. So it's very smooth.
That's the limonene. Yeah.
Lemony, okay. So,
yeah.
So it's
citrusy.
Yes, it's slightly citrusy. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
And there was a question here about developing a tolerance. Let me see. I would like to know if one intends to develop a tolerance to it or not. Do I take it every day for long-term anxiety, or do I increase the dosage over time? I'm currently taking 2 pipettes every day.
Right. So that's also a really interesting question. So in the medical cannabis space, they're finding with kids who are using medical cannabis for epilepsy are seeming to build some kind of a tolerance to it. And they are addressing that. Well, in epilepsy, it's very difficult to address. What they try to do is actually swap strains of cannabis that they're using around a little bit to sort of just give the endocannabinoid system a bit of a sort of a jolt. It's a little bit like HIIT training, that HIIT training, you sort of do something different all the time just to kind of keep mixing it up.
Yeah.
So there's in the medical cannabis space, there is I wouldn't say evidence yet because that's too strong a word, but we are starting to see that there may be some tolerances built up. However, in the CBD space, haven't yet seen that, but it certainly is possible that you would develop some kind of a tolerance to it, not addiction. We don't see any addiction to CBD, so you're really safe on that point. I've been using CBD oil now consistently for nearly 2 years, and my dose has stayed the same. So so I haven't needed to because I'm menopausal. It's not very exciting in many respects, and me taking number 1 has done okay. And now with this new one, I've called it All About Me because, and this is sort of a bit of a segue, I've called it All About Me because my idol is Katharine Hepburn, and there was a documentary on her life called All About Me. And I thought it's quite a play on things, because you know what, it is about time for most of us. It's about time it is all about us. So it's all about me, and if your husband wants to buy some, then he's going to remember it's all about you also. And and it's all about Katharine Hepburn because everything's about Katharine Hepburn. So anyway, I don't know why. I just wanted to tell you that. Yeah, that's why. And I thought, I don't want to read on my things, menopause oil in big letters. God, I want to read, let's keep going oil. Yeah. Let's not give up yet oil.
Okay, so thank you for answering the question about tolerance.
Okay. So I've done, tolerance and potential increase. And on the depression or anxiety, I think that question was related to. Again, it's checking in. If you feel that your anxiety is increasing, what I tend to do is, if I've had a really hectic day and I go to bed hyper, I'll take 4 drops. But then the next night I go back to 3 drops.
Yeah.
So I don't increase the dosage and leave it there. I say, well, okay, the next night I've had a lovely evening. I've watched some TV. I've watched 16 episodes of Antiques Roadshow, and I'm now going to go to bed. And I only need 2 drops.
Oh my God, hilarious. You love antiques, clearly.
They remind me of my age.
Love it, yeah. Like a fine wine, you see.
Exactly.
Yes, so that is absolutely brilliant. You've given us loads of information, and anyone that's watching or watches this later, if you have any questions, then do please let us know. I mean, we have got more questions here, but we could go on all night. So I think we've answered a fair amount and taken up plenty of your time, Melissa, and thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you for all of you for jumping on the live and for watching us on Friday night. I will be back in here with a psychotherapist colleague, friend of mine, and we'll be talking about confidence and self-esteem. And Melissa, thank you so much for your time. And I hope that if anyone puts any questions in, you can help them out with answering. This has been so interesting. I knew nothing about CBD oil. And thank you. So there we go.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So you're Montana Optimum Wellness. People can find you, just Google the company, and you can find all the research that they want on it. And there's also a lot of information on Melissa's site, actually, if you want to educate yourself more about what CBD is, because I think it's a very user-friendly site to get through if you don't have a lot of knowledge and you want to understand more about the product and what it can do for you. So we look forward to hearing more about how the All About Me sells.
Yeah, see, good.
What's the date it's launched?
I've actually got a bottle of the formulation here. It'll be like the next couple of weeks. I'm just like giving it one last sort of test of 2 different strengths just to make sure I'm really happy with it. Yeah, and I was chatting to Inbar today in Israel as well, just fine tuning.
Brilliant. And this was thank you, ladies. Dad loved this. This was the lady who was talking about her dad who had arthritis. So he's been watching.
Hi, Dad.
So thank you about that, and that was really brilliant. Thank you. So there we go. Fantastic, Melissa. Lots of blessings to you, and we'll maintain radio contact. And
lots of love.
Thanks a lot, everybody. Take care. Bye. Bye.
Take care. Bye.